Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Today's deep dive takes us right to the heart of Agile.
Agile.
Yeah, and we're going to be checking out this talk by Jon Kern. You might know him. He's a real expert in this stuff. Actually helped create the Agile Manifesto back in 2001.
Wow, that's going back.
It is. And get this, he's asking a pretty big question, a question that a lot of us might be thinking about. Is Agile dead?
Oh, I've heard that one floating around.
Yeah, or has it just, maybe lost its way a little?
Strayed from the path.
Exactly, like it's wandered off the trail.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is Kern, he really believes that those Agile values and principles, they're more important now than ever.
Huh. So not dead then?
No, not at all. He actually argues that, those problems people have with Agile, they don't come from Agile itself.
Oh.
It's the way people have kind of twisted it or maybe just applied it in the wrong way.
I see. Interesting. So it's not the tool, it's the workman.
Haha.
I like that. I like that. So, okay, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Kern, he paints this picture of the software world being dominated by these really heavy processes.
Waterfall methodologies.
Yeah, the waterfall. A lot of frustration with how rigid and inefficient it all was.
Yeah. It makes sense thinking back on it. Agile emerged from that struggle.
Yeah.
Kern, he got together with some other folks, really bright minds in software, and they all met up at this ski resort in 2001.
Snowbird, right?
Yeah, Snowbird. To brainstorm, toss around some different ways of approaching software development.
So what were they aiming for? Like a brand new system to replace everything?
Not exactly. They really just wanted to get to the heart of it. Like, what are the most important principles for making software development successful?
I see, yeah.
And, well, as you can probably guess, the result of that gathering was the Agile Manifesto.
Okay, so we have this Agile Manifesto, right?
Yeah.
And it's supposed to make software development more flexible. Yeah. Collaborative, focused on what's actually valuable. But how do they actually define that?
So Kern, he kind of jokes about the Agile Manifesto being just 4 measly bullets,
4 measly bullets.
Yeah. He emphasizes how they really wanted to focus on basic principles, not create some rigid step-by-step process.
So no rule book?
No, more like a set of values, like a compass, really.
Okay, I get you. A guiding star.
Yeah.
And I've always heard that one of the most interesting things about Agile is that hierarchy of importance.
Right.
And Kern points this out, right? With people.
People at the top. Absolutely.
Then processes, and then tools.
That's the order.
So people first.
Always.
Seems like a good place to start. But he actually adds another element to that, doesn't he?
He does. He brings in technical excellence.
Yeah.
He firmly believes that you can't have successful Agile without that. Like, if you're not focused on building a top-notch product, the processes are meaningless.
Yeah, I see that.
Empty rituals, he calls them.
Empty rituals, yeah. So it's not just about being fast or flexible. It's about delivering a quality product.
Absolutely. And to kind of illustrate this, he talks about working with a paint manufacturer.
Oh, interesting. How does that tie in?
He actually brought the developers right into the factory.
Wow, that's hands-on.
Yeah, had them working shoulder to shoulder with the people who would be using the software every day.
I bet they learned a lot.
They did.
Yeah.
And it allowed them to build a product that truly met those users' specific needs.
That makes a lot of sense. Getting close to the user, really understanding their needs.
That's the key.
So, okay, let's get back to the core principles here. We've got the Agile Manifesto and the 4 core values. They really emphasize people and value.
They do.
Remind me what those are again. I feel like they sometimes get lost in all the discussion about specific Agile practices.
It happens. So the first one is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. It's pushing back against those rigid processes that were so common back then.
Right, yeah.
The second one is working software over comprehensive documentation. It's about getting things done, not just writing endless documents.
Less talk, more action. Yeah.
Exactly. Then we have customer collaboration over contract negotiation. This is about building strong partnerships, working together with the customer every step of the way.
That's important.
And finally, there's responding to change over following a plan, being flexible, being able to adapt as things change.
Yeah, that's crucial in software development. Things change so fast.
All the time.
It almost seems obvious, doesn't it?
It does, and that's exactly what Kern points out. He asks, if Agile has failed, which of these values is no longer relevant?
Good question. They all seem pretty timeless, right?
Exactly. They're just as important today as they were back then.
So then where did things go wrong? If these values are so solid, why do we even have this debate about whether Agile works?
Well, Kern says the problem isn't with the values themselves, it's how they've been interpreted.
I see.
He thinks Agile has, in a lot of cases, led to the very problems it was supposed to solve.
Like what?
Rigid processes, too much reliance on tools, forgetting about the human element.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. It can become so bureaucratic.
Right. And he tells this funny story about a team that didn't want to break down user stories because it would create all these extra subtasks in their Jira system.
Oh no, so the tool dictates the process.
Exactly. And he calls this process calcification. When those agile processes become so rigid that they lose their adaptability.
It's like the process is fossilized.
Yeah, exactly. And he even mentions SAFe, the scaled agile framework.
Yeah.
He says it can contribute to this problem by being overly complex and overwhelming.
Too much process, not enough people.
Right. So if we're getting bogged down in processes and tools, how do we get back to that true agile spirit?
Yeah, how do we actually do that? It's easy to say focus on people, but how do you make that happen day to day?
Well, Kern's solution is pretty simple. Talk and listen. He really emphasizes building that psychological safety, creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable speaking up, sharing ideas, collaborating.
Just talk and listen.
Yeah.
Sounds almost too simple.
Right. But he's talking about creating a culture of trust and openness, which can be really hard to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's more than just scheduling another meeting, right?
Definitely. It's about shifting the focus back to the people doing the work. And Kern has this great phrase, minding the gap. It's about reducing that time between taking action and seeing results.
Ah, okay. So it's not enough just to talk. Those conversations need to lead to real outcomes.
Exactly. And that leads to another important point Kern makes about this concern over declining technical excellence in software development.
That's interesting. I can see how focusing too much on process and speed could lead to lower quality.
Absolutely. And he ties this back to his call for reclaiming Agile, getting back to that passion for building great software.
Not just functional, but elegant.
Right. Robust, maintainable.
Bringing back that sense of craftsmanship.
Exactly. Technical excellence. For Kern, it's not optional. It's the foundation for successful Agile.
And for creating a more fulfilling experience for developers.
Absolutely. When you're building something you're proud of, it just feels different. There's a joy in that.
There is. It's like you're creating something beautiful.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, what would you say are the most important insights Kern wants us to take away?
I think the biggest one is that technical excellence is not a solo act.
It takes a village.
It does. You need a supportive team, a collaborative environment, and a clear vision for the product.
And of course, that understanding of the user's needs.
Can't forget that. It's about finding that balance between speed and quality, embracing Agile while still holding on to that craftsmanship.
It's a tough balance.
It is, but when you get it right, it's incredibly rewarding.
I agree. So as we move towards the next part of our deep dive, I'd love to hear from you, the listener. What are your thoughts on what we've discussed so far?
What resonated with you? Maybe something sparked a memory from your own experience as a developer, or a team lead, or maybe a product owner.
Yeah, take a moment to reflect on those questions before we come back. For the second part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring technical excellence in more depth, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation. Welcome back, everybody. So we're continuing our deep dive into Jon Kern's perspective on Agile. And I'm really fascinated by this whole idea of technical excellence that he keeps bringing up.
Yeah, he really zeroes in on that, doesn't he? He sees it as absolutely critical to the success of Agile. And I think he's right. It's something that often gets overlooked, in the rush to be fast and flexible.
Right, exactly. And as we were saying earlier, Agile's all about enabling teams to build great products efficiently, right? And technical excellence, it plays a huge role in that.
It does.
A lot of people might think Agile is just about processes and tools, but Kern seems to be saying, none of that matters if you're not building a quality product.
He's basically saying you can have a perfectly organized kitchen, but still serve up burnt food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Kern, he comes at this with a really interesting perspective, with his background as an aerospace engineer.
Right. He brings that systems thinking to software development. He emphasizes looking at the whole system, understanding how all the parts work together to create a quality product.
So it's not just about writing clean code, it's about thinking about the big picture.
Exactly. And he introduces this idea of a recursive approach to software development.
Recursive approach, okay.
Oh,
What's that all about?
so it starts with a clear vision of what you're building. Even if it's just a feature set or a single feature, that vision guides everything that follows.
Okay, so before you even write any code, you have to know exactly what you're trying to build.
And why. That's important too. And what's really interesting is that Kern believes everyone on the team should understand that vision, not just the developers, but the product owners, everyone.
It's about shared understanding, right?
Yeah.
Everyone being on the same page.
Exactly. And that shared understanding empowers people to make better decisions.
I see. So they're not just following orders. They're actually contributing to something they believe in.
And understand. And ultimately, that leads to a better product, a more technically excellent product.
Okay, that makes sense. When you're connected to the purpose of what you're building, you're more likely to care about the quality.
Absolutely.
But how does this recursive approach actually work in practice?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example?
Okay, imagine you're building a mobile app, like for ordering groceries.
Grocery app. Okay.
The recursive approach would start with defining that core vision, like making grocery shopping easy, convenient, enjoyable.
That's the big picture.
Right. Then you break that vision down into smaller chunks, like what features will actually make grocery shopping easy.
Like a seamless search function, easy to browse products, a secure checkout.
Exactly. And as you develop each feature, you constantly check it against that original vision. Does this feature make grocery shopping easier, more enjoyable? If not, maybe you need to rethink it.
So it's this constant back and forth.
It is. It's iterative, cyclical. That's where the recursive part comes in. You're always looping back to that core vision, using it as your guide.
I like that. It sounds very intentional, very mindful.
And it really aligns with the heart of Agile, right? Close collaboration, continuous learning, always focused on delivering value.
That's great. But if you're constantly referring back to that big vision, how much detail do you need up front? In terms of requirements, architecture, is there a risk of over-engineering?
That's a great question. And Kern actually talks about this. He advocates for just enough requirements, just enough architecture and design.
Just enough. Okay, I like that. What does he mean by that?
He's saying don't spend too much time up front planning for every possible scenario.
Okay.
Start with a minimal design and then iterate, learn as you go.
It's about finding that sweet spot, right? Not too much, not too little.
Exactly. And he also stresses the importance of consistency. He suggests creating a consistent code base, even if you have to use code generators for some of the repetitive tasks.
Why is consistency so important?
Well, it makes the code base easier to understand, easier to maintain. It reduces the cognitive load on developers.
Yeah, so they can focus on the more creative parts of the work.
Exactly. And it also helps when you're bringing new people onto the team.
Right. They can get up to speed faster.
Exactly. So it's all about efficiency and effectiveness, really.
Yeah, I get that. Kern seems to be all about streamlining the development process, making sure the team can deliver quality software quickly and efficiently.
He is. And he also touches on the importance of DevOps practices.
Right. DevOps. How does that fit in with technical excellence?
Well, DevOps is all about collaboration between development and operations, which really aligns with Agile principles.
I see.
And Kern's idea of minding the gap that we talked about earlier, it fits perfectly with the DevOps philosophy of continuous integration and continuous delivery.
So you're constantly integrating new code, testing it, deploying it.
In small increments, yes.
And that allows you to catch problems early, get feedback from users, and just keep improving the product.
It's a very dynamic way of working.
It is. But with all this talk of efficiency and automation, do you think there's a risk of losing that sense of craftsmanship that Kern values so much?
That's a really interesting question, and Kern does express some concern about that. He sees a potential decline in technical excellence in the software world.
Why do you think that is?
Well, he thinks it's partly because information is so readily available now, it's easy to copy and paste code without really understanding it.
Yeah, like taking shortcuts.
Right. And that can lead to lower quality software. So his call to reclaim Agile becomes even more important.
Not just going back to the Agile Manifesto, but rekindling that passion for building truly great software.
Exactly. It's about bringing back that sense of pride in the craft.
So it's more than just a job, it's an art.
Yes, and Kern sees technical excellence as the foundation for all of it.
It's the soil from which everything else grows.
I love that analogy. And he believes that cultivating that sense of craftsmanship, it creates a more fulfilling experience for developers.
Yeah, when you're building something you're proud of, it just feels different.
It does. So as we kind of wrap up this discussion of technical excellence, what key insights would you say Kern is emphasizing?
I think one of the biggest ones is that technical excellence, it's not a solo endeavor. It's a team effort.
Right. You need that collaborative environment, that shared vision, that deep understanding of the user.
And of course, finding that balance between speed and quality.
Embracing agile, but not at the expense of craftsmanship.
It's a journey, isn't it?
It is. And Kern's insights give us a map to navigate that journey.
I agree. So as we head into the final part of our deep dive, I want to hear from you, the listener. What resonated with you about this idea of technical excellence?
What connections did you make to your own experiences, maybe as a developer, as a team lead, or even as a product owner? Take a moment to reflect on that, and we'll be back in a moment to wrap things up and talk about how we can apply these insights to our own work.
All right, welcome back, everyone. It's been a really insightful journey so far, exploring Jon Kern's thoughts on Agile, this return to Agile thing. I feel like we've uncovered some really valuable gems here, some ways to make Agile actually work better for us.
Yeah, for our teams, for the people who use the software we build.
Right, exactly. So it's about getting back to basics, like we've been saying.
Remembering what really matters.
Yeah, putting people first.
Yeah.
Remembering that the goal is to build a great product, not just follow processes for the sake of it.
Exactly.
So let's take a minute to recap here. What are the biggest takeaways from Kern's talk?
Well, if I had to sum it up in one sentence, I'd say Agile's not dead, but it needs, a little CPR.
A little resuscitation.
I agree.
Putting it back to life.
We need to get back to those core values, collaboration, adaptability, and that focus on delivering value.
Right, and realizing that the Agile Manifesto, it's not a rule book.
No.
It's more like a philosophy.
Yeah, like a set of guiding principles.
Right, exactly. And Kern reminds us of that, that hierarchy. People first.
Process second.
Then tools.
That's the order.
It's so simple, but so easy to forget.
It is, yeah.
And of course, we can't forget technical excellence. Kern's really passionate about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about churning out code quickly.
Right.
It's got to be high quality, well-designed, and actually solve the user's problems.
Absolutely.
And what I found interesting is that Kern sees this reclaiming Agile thing as a really personal journey. It's not just about changing the organization. It's about each of us,
Taking responsibility for our own practices, our own mindset.
He encourages us to, be always a student, never a master.
I love that phrase.
Me too. It's so easy to get stuck in our ways, especially in a field like software development.
Things are always changing.
All the time. So how do we actually embrace that always a student mindset?
Well, Kern suggests starting small, making little improvements here and there in how we work, how we interact with our teams.
Small steps, big impact.
Yeah, just being more mindful, more intentional, and open to trying new things.
And he also talks about minding the gap, which is all about, minimizing the time between action and results.
Yes.
I really connected with that because, who hasn't felt that frustration of working on something for months and not seeing any real progress?
It can be really demoralizing.
It is. But Kern's ideas, they offer a way out of that cycle.
It's about making those connections visible for ourselves and for the people we're building for.
So we can see the impact of our work.
Exactly. And that ties back to his main message, make Agile accessible again.
Make Agile accessible.
It's a powerful call to action.
It is. What do you think he means by that?
I think he's saying, let's strip away all the complexity, all the jargon, the framework.
Keep it back to the basics.
Get the simplicity of those original Agile principles.
Right. So it's not this exclusive club.
No.
It's something anyone can understand and use.
Exactly. And that brings us to you, the listener.
Yeah. What about you?
We've explored Kern's ideas. Now it's your turn.
What one small step can you take this week to make your work, or maybe your team's work, more aligned with that true spirit of Agile?
Maybe it's starting a conversation with your team about those core values.
Or maybe taking another look at a process that's become way too complicated.
Or maybe just learning one new skill that can improve your technical excellence.
Whatever it is, take that step,
Embrace that idea of continuous improvement, of collaboration, of putting people first.
Let's rediscover the joy in building great software together.
With a renewed sense of purpose and clarity.
It's been a fantastic deep dive. I feel really energized,
Yeah.
re-energized about Agile, about what it can do.
Me too.
And I want to thank you for sharing your insights, for connecting Kern's ideas to our own experiences.
My pleasure, really. And remember, this Agile journey, it's a continuous one.
We're all learning and growing together.
Absolutely.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it valuable, maybe even inspiring.
Until next time.
See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
See you then.